Pop those drinks. It's time for Sports Around the Bar. Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jake, your bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by the great and powerful Drew. Got it right this time.
Yeah.
And we got a lot to talk about today. We got the AAF falling apart, Drew. I'm still fired up about it. I'm going to try to keep it under control until we actually start talking about it here, and then I'm going to lose control. We have Morant moving on from college basketball. He's officially, he's going to declare that he's going to the NBA draft. Kind of a little precursor to actually doing it. I don't know why you had to have the extra announcement there. We have the Braves signing Acuna. We haven't talked about him yet, and obviously it's a big deal because he's 21 years old. He's just got a $100 million contract. First time that's happened in baseball history. And we're also going to talk Quentin Spain, moving on to Buffalo, just because he's a former Titan and I want to talk about him. Now, I mean, it's pretty quiet in NFL land these days. At least it has been for the past couple days. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Buffalo rebuilding that offensive line and maybe some more football news as well. So we'll get into all of that. Is there anything you're looking forward to talking about here?
The AFF, the Alliance Football League. I mean, it's...
At least you don't have to say that from now on.
I don't have to say it from now on. Street, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us.
Absolutely, man. A lot going on here. The AAF, they blew it. They blew it. I mean, they were talking about this. We were talking about how they had such a huge advantage getting that extra year on the XFL. And if this really is something where only one of these leagues can survive, you're getting your fan base set up. You're getting out there. You're getting that following way, way ahead of Vince McMahon in the XFL that doesn't start till next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it started out kind of slow, but then hit really kind of a big boom in week 2. And then it just kind of dissipated. And don't get me wrong, I had a hard time catching myself trying to watch these games, you know, and we got away from it as a show altogether at Sports Around the Bar. And, you know, it wasn't on purpose.
Right.
But is there actual room for another league in football to take our hearts like the NFL has?
Yes. And it's not something that happens overnight. You don't just start a league and have the same success as the NFL that's been running for 50, 60, 70 years now. But they had good viewership, man. They had enough people watching this. They had 400,000 to 500,000 people usually on average watching these games apiece. So you're getting about 2 million views on a weekend. Those are good numbers, especially in TV land. You can sell ads, you can sell everything you need. The reason they're folding, and this is, you know, apparently from Bill Polian, who was a big part of this league. He was one of their operators and one of the guys they're really leaning on for some of the business and football side of things, was just their business expenses were out of control. To me, that's inexcusable. You have $250 million to operate with, and you're telling me your business expenses are running out of hand? What are you paying for? Like, where's the money going? Honestly, come on. That's what I want to see. I want to see who are they paying way too much money to. Are they getting too much in consulting fees? Are they going way out in left field with just all these crazy expenses? Because they're paying each of these players $70,000 on the first year of this contract. You multiply it out on about 50 guys per team, you're only talking about $30 million. Out of 250 here, Drew, okay? You're talking about a fifth year budget is going to salary, which is, ask any other business, that would be a dream scenario, as 30% of your business expense goes to salaries. I don't get it, man. I really don't.
Seth, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us. Will, as always, it's good to have you here. And George and Steve, I'm glad you guys could join us. I mean, you tell me. You give $250 million of your own money. At this point in time, you're already looking at it as you already lost $70 million of the $250. One season's not even done yet. Do you feel like your investment is worth it?
At first, this needs to at least make it through the inaugural season. You need to get into your off season and then try to reset and figure out a lot of your problems. You can sit there and say, okay, we spent too much on this year. We spent too much on commentating this year. We need better players. Here's how we go out and get them. You can't quit 6 weeks after you just got a $250 million influx of cash. And this, to me, is Tom Dundon, the CEO of the league, or whatever you want to call it, the president, the head of it. This is him getting cold feet because he's the guy putting all that money in there. And he's sitting there saying, you know what, that money's disappearing faster than I want to admit. I'm just going to pull out. And this is why you can't have your major investor making all the critical decisions for the league, because you get decisions like this. Terrible decision. I can't believe it, man. The guy's a billionaire. It's like, obviously he knows something about making money, right? You think?
Yeah.
But you look at everything going on here, and I'm flabbergasted, man. I just don't believe it. Like, I can't believe it was this poorly managed. And Bill Polian even came out and said, I guess there's only room for one of these leagues to survive this time of year. You're the only league, okay? The XFL hasn't even started yet. So, to me, not a good excuse.
George says it sucks to see the new league close. And then Joey's Joey says he needs football year-round, which if the NFL could make that happen, I completely
At least
agree
give me
with
like
you.
7 or 8 months out of the year, if not year
And then
round.
Steve says this is such a Bush League move.
It is, absolutely, and that's my biggest point here. This is amateur business moves. I don't get it. Again, coming from a billionaire, you'd think you'd see better, but it just goes to show you you can never be too big to fail, and this to me is a huge failure. Again, they should have at least outlasted through the first season, and then you can kind of pivot and go in different directions. You can sit there and say, okay, we need bigger TV contracts, we need more money out of our TV partners, and you go to try to negotiate with them. You can go to the NFL and say, we need your better players because we're not going to make it if we don't.
Well,
you don't
they're
quit
blaming.
in week 8.
They are blaming. Part of this is blaming the NFL for not allowing them to go after their players.
And I understand that. But guess what? You knew going into this you weren't going to have those guys. You can't just decide at week 8 that all of a sudden let's just flip the switch because we don't have them now. I mean, it's a terrible bluff. I mean, and for everyone sitting there saying, oh, it's just suspended. No, the league is dead. They fired all the business people. They've released all the players. This is dead. And you even saw Johnny Manziel out there tweeting everybody saying, look, guys, this is a rough deal, but that last check you got is the last dollar you're going to see from the AAF. Don't waste your money suing them because there's not any money to be had.
Oh, well, he should know all about that.
Yeah, and I say credit to him. As much shit as we talk about Johnny Manziel, I didn't mean to say that. As much as we talk about Johnny Manziel in a negative light, this is an upstanding move because a lot of these guys don't have the same business. They don't have the lawyers that he has that are going to be able to tell him, like, look, man, you could sue, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, and you're probably not going to get anything out of them. A lot of those guys don't have that, so props to him for kind of helping out the little guy here and really, again, putting on a move that I think not everybody knows about. He's putting out some information not everybody knows about.
So then my next question to you would be is why did they use the wordage suspend all?
Because it's soft language. You don't want to sit there and come out and sit there and say, we failed. And reportedly, they're keeping a couple people on staff.
That's what I want to know is what does this exactly mean for the AAF?
It's supposedly they're keeping a couple people on staff where they're going to go out and try to seek further investment. But if you saw this and the guy that just pumped $70 million or $250 million of his own money into it and then says, this isn't going to happen, I don't believe in this anymore, how much of your money are you putting into this? Because let me tell you how much of my money I'd put into it. None. Absolutely none. I mean, if anything, I'd go bet on the XFL and see if I could buy part of that from Vince McMahon.
So that's my next question. With the AAF obviously stopping all business, how does this affect the XFL and what they're going to do next year?
They're off to the races.
And does it help them?
Oh, yeah.
Or does it make Vince McMahon maybe kind of step back a little bit and be nervous? And I didn't want to ignore a comment also. Sheree said that the rumor is that WWE is going to buy out the AAF just like they bought out the WCW.
Wait till they go under and then buy them for 20 cents on the dollar. I think it'd be a great move. You're getting great fan bases. Teams like San Antonio and San Diego have already established fan bases where they're having a lot of success. They're filling up those stadiums because football is wanted in those cities. Not everyone does. There's some that you go and you watch, like Salt Lake. I don't think had great attendance or anything like that. They weren't the worst, but there were some of them where you look at the games and the stands are half full. I absolutely would buy this because you're buying the viewership on TV. You're buying those 400 to 50,000, 500,000 views every game. You're buying the people that are going to show up. You're buying the people that already like these guys, and you're getting the teams as well. You're getting the coaches. You're getting guys like Steve Spurrier that are going to come into your league and be able to compete at a higher level than somebody else you might bring off the street. The name of the game right now is to get as much talent as you can, and I think Vince McMahon should eat this up, keep the teams he wants, and then you can just let everybody else walk.
Yeah. So you think it's...
Oh, I think the XFL is great. Like, they are in the prime position to actually kind of stick the landing this time. This is the best thing that could have happened. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree with you.
Not only do you have a case study where you can go sit there and watch them and say, this is what didn't work, this is what did, here's what we need to change, here's what we need to keep the same. You have that, and you could also sit there and go buy up some of these coaches. You've got guys like Steve Spurrier who, yeah, I get it, he's 70, but now he's got nothing to do because he was on a 3-year contract with the AAF, and that's what he was told. We've got enough money at the beginning to at least get through 3 years of this. Well, apparently he was lied to because it didn't even make it through year 1. Okay, all right. Sorry, this fired me up because, again, I wanted this league to keep going. I wanted it to succeed, and to watch them fail because they mismanaged their money that badly, it kind of breaks my heart. I feel like anyone out there probably could have done a better job than what we actually saw at the AAF.
It blows my mind. I mean, of course, I'm not a billionaire. I don't have $250 million to put, surprise, surprise, into a football league. But if I'm investing something like that, I have to realize also that there is going to be that point in time where it's going to get a little scary, and I'm going to go, oh man, I could lose a lot of this money. But when you have $250 to put into something, you got $250 to lose.
Absolutely. Now, Sharif is also saying the XFL has a major TV deal under wraps. That's true. He's going to be on with, I believe it's FS1 and ESPN are going to carry XFL games. That is a big part of this, but let's not pretend like the AAF didn't have a TV partner too. They were on CBS, they were on the NFL Network. Their games were places you could find them. Not everyone, but a lot of those games were in places you could find them and find them relatively easy. So they're not the only ones with the contract here. The XFL, I think, has the better contract, and I think that'll help them going forward. But, I mean, obviously that's not enough to keep one league afloat, right?
Right.
All right, Drew, let's move on. We don't have to talk AAF all day. Why don't we talk about Ja Morant moving on to the NBA? I put this question out here before the show, as soon as this news came out. Do you see him possibly upseating Zion Williamson if the right team gets that first overall pick? Or is Zion just the slam dunk number one? He's going number one, and if you don't take him, you're crazy.
Well, if you remember, in the tournament after they beat Murray State, or not Murray State, Murray State beat Marquette, I asked you, I said, if he does this again, and he goes and upsets another team in this bracket, does he have a chance of becoming that number one pick? And you told me no one moves Zion out of the number one seed.
And I still believe that. I still think Zion has the athleticism, everything you want to see, that you could take him as a team and say, if we can teach this kid to shoot from range a little bit, we got another Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak. You have another Greek freak. If you don't teach him to shoot, you probably have Ben Simmons at the worst case scenario, where he can go in, he can still make an impact in games, driving into the basket, playing inside. If you teach him to shoot any better, you could be talking about this kid like he's LeBron. I mean, when LeBron came into the game, he didn't really have a jump shot. He's worked on his jump shot, now he has it. I think when you look at ceilings, when you look at what can this guy turn into, Zion Williamson has that potential to be the number one player in the NBA if he can work out a deep shot. I don't really think I don't think Ja Morant has that. I think he's going to be a very good player. I think he's going to be an impactful point guard. I just don't think he has the same ceiling Zion does.
Well, one thing that everyone talks about Giannis is that what kind of weight he gained and how big his body grew from being drafted to what he has now become. Does Joe Morant have that kind of possibility growing
he's a
like
sophomore.
that?
He's a little bit older.
He's still a young man, and if you look at his body frame, it is thin. Versus like Zion, he's obviously already grown into his body. So that's why it's like...
How scary it would be if he got bigger. I mean, honestly... he could grow into it. I've seen some people sit there and tell me he's not NBA ready yet. He's not the same guy. And I agree. I think Zion, if you're talking about year 1, year 2, year 3, might be the better pick from out the gate. But most of these teams don't need that guy right now. Most of the teams picking at number 1, unless it somehow falls to the Lakers, aren't really competing for a championship anytime soon. They need to build around whichever guy they draft with that first overall pick. So I don't really think that's as much of a concern. I don't think he needs to be the best point guard coming out in this draft, and even Zion. He doesn't need to be the best forward in this draft or in the NBA right away because somebody took him. You've got time to develop these guys. I don't think that's as big of an issue. Do I think he can grow into it? Sure, I think he can. But he's a point guard. He doesn't necessarily need to grow into it.
Well, you never know. I mean, if he does grow into his body, he might not be a point guard for very long.
We could see him move to a 2 or a 3, but at 6'3", I don't think he's quite big enough for it. Unless he gets like a height spurt or a growth spurt, and now all of a sudden we're talking about being 6'5", 6'6".
It was just.
I don't really see him playing forward. Do you?
No, I don't. It was a joke in a sense. But Steve said Zion is going to be overrated, or is I guess he's saying he is overrated. I don't know how. I don't
think he's overrated, but I think he does need to develop a shot because if you look at all the great NBA players if you look at any of the top players right now, what can they do? Pretty much unilaterally, they can shoot. I think the only exception to that, I think, is Russell Westbrook, who's not as good of a shooter, but he can still shoot. I mean, you can't be Ben Simmons and expect to succeed in this league anymore. I really don't think so. So my question is going to be, can Zion develop a deep range game that can kind of complement the way he drives to the basket and the way he plays on the inside? If he can do that, we're talking about a guy that, with his athleticism, could be the next, maybe not LeBron, because LeBron's probably a once-in-a-generation talent, but he could be that next dominant force that can lead teams to multiple championships.
Yeah. But one thing that I'd also like to see is him play against other grown men. Not that these college kids are little by any means, but the NBA, they're all full-grown there.
Absolutely.
And they're all big-bodied. He won't be the biggest guy out there every time. So it would be interesting to see how his game develops into the NBA. A lot of people are telling, Zion to come back. Sharif says that Zion will come back to Duke. He said, is that a possibility?
Oh, I think it's a possibility because I didn't think he was coming back for the rest of the season. And let me tell you why. I thought when he had that injury, when he had the shoe blowout, there was no reason. I mean, you were the number one pick. Pretty much everybody at that point, unless, John Morant had won the tournament or something like that and got overhyped, I really don't think anyone was going to upset Zion for the number one pick. Maybe R.J. Barrett if he could somehow lead Duke without him.
Yeah.
But realistically, Zion was going to be the number one pick. And he still came back. He still had the heart. He said, this is why I play the game. I play it for the love of the game. He had a great attitude about it. I'll give him that. Maybe not the best business move, but from on-court kind of, I love this game and I want to play, he absolutely showed up and said, I want to help Duke win a championship. I want to come back and make sure that happens. Obviously, it didn't. They had a pretty disappointing loss. They had a couple scares, too. They were nowhere near dominant in the tournament this year. I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, I really think he's the kind of guy that wants to go prove a point at Duke. Should he? Absolutely not. If I was his advisor, I'd be sitting there saying, man, you're already the number one pick. There's nowhere to go. There is no up from here.
Right. And injuries can happen.
Exactly. I mean, you already had the scare with the shoe, too. What if he would have blown out his ACL?
I do want to talk about the shoe real quick. It is now being reported that shoe could be worth $250,000. Why in the world are you buying a blown out shoe?
Well, you can say you got a piece of history. It's the greatest conversation starter you could probably have. I mean, sports memorabilia, man, always goes for big dollars.
It does.
And if you're a Duke fan, how great would it be to sit there and say this is where where the season hinged? It'd be even better if they won the tournament, but
right, yeah, it's $1 million.
If he does move on to be LeBron, you can sit there and say, look at what I've got. I mean, you could probably sell that for $1 million, 10 years from now. So it's interesting. Let me ask you this: Zion's off the board. You got the second overall pick in the NBA draft. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it Morant, or do you take someone like R.J. Barrett? Do you think about someone like Cam Reddish? Is there some kind? Is it all scheme fit, or do you think that Morant is just that good that you take him, and I don't care if you run him at the 1 or the 2, you find a place to make him work?
It's hard to say without knowing the team. What is the team's need?
That's true.
I mean, that would be more of a where I could really tell you exactly what's going to happen. But yeah, skill wise to skill where it's at to the ceiling that he has, Morant's number 2. I absolutely fully believe that. And my question to you is he making the right decision to go into the NBA draft this season instead of going back to another season with Murray State?
Yeah, I think when you look at the way his stats have increased between his freshman year to his sophomore year, I mean, this year, Drew, he's averaged 24.5 points in college, 10 assists, which led the entire NCAA,
right,
and 5.5 rebounds. I mean, I think when it comes to dominant performances, you're not going to get better out of Murray State. They got that big Marquette win in the beginning part of the tournament. I don't think there's anything left to prove. It's too bad for him. Zion's in this class because otherwise we could be talking about him being the number 1 pick. But again, you're risking injury. You're risking a bunch of other things coming back.
And how much
you're risking
more does
falling
he have,
off? It's Murray State.
How much more does he have to prove at Murray State?
Exactly. And not that Murray State's that bad of a team, but you can't sit there and tell me that Murray State is going to be another powerhouse next year, that you can rely on all those pieces around him to be there again and be as good as they were. I think it's time to move on. Even if you're number 2, the dollar value is not much different. Go get your money and then prove you can play in the NBA.
Agreed. So Maddie says Reddish and Barrett are overrated. They should stay. They are not ready for the NBA.
Now that might be true. For everyone sitting there saying Morant's not ready for the NBA, I think he is. When you look at the scoring and everything, at the very least he could shoot. The NBA will find a way, and as long as he winds his way on a decent team, they'll find a way to get this guy open. And they'll find a way to get him shots and get him what he needs to be impactful in the NBA. R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, it was night and day when Zion was gone, right? I mean, we were talking about these guys being top 5 picks, but Duke did not look like a top 5 team when it was just those two. I'd be much more concerned about drafting one of those guys than I would be about drafting Morant here.
It would make me concerned to draft them as high as they're projected to be drafted when they couldn't take over when Zion got hurt to be,
exactly.
Like, okay, Reddish jumped in and just made everything for Duke look better. Even though they weren't going through Zion, they were going through whoever it was, if it was Barrett.
The next man did not step up.
It did not step up enough to sit there and say, oh, that's your 3rd pick overall. That's your 4th or 5th pick overall.
Exactly. And we saw Duke really limp to the finish line there until Zion came back. You could tell that when he came back, the attitude on the team was 100% different. That was his team entirely. Again, I would be much more concerned about drafting one of those guys than I would be about either Zion or Ja. I mean, that's just the truth.
Yep.
I think there's 2 home run picks here. I think it's these 2 guys in the NBA. When you talk about the NBA draft, usually you only have a couple guys that are up at the top and everybody else is kind of a roll of the dice in the first round even. I really think there's 2 guys this year that are that good. And I think I'd go with those 2, 1 and 2.
Yep, I agree.
All right, let's move on. Baseball time.
Unless based on needs. We'll have to see what the teams are in the draft.
Even still, you'll find a way to get creative. I mean, basketball, you can go run a small squad. You can put somebody else at a 3. You could move Morant to a 2. You could move him at point guard. You could move your point guard to the 2. You know, you can get creative. You can do stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's not like football where you're going to go draft a guard and say, I need you to play defensive tackle this week. You know, so I think basketball, you can be a little more creative with this, and you can find a way to make it work. Just take the best available guy. Unless you have 4 point guards, then maybe you don't have to take Morant there. Then maybe you go somewhere else. But for the most part, you get creative.
What if it's the Warriors?
Well, if it's the Warriors, just take the best available guy to play on the bench. I think that's what I'd do. And obviously, they're not going to have that pick. But yeah, the Warriors get Zion. Game over. All right, moving on. Let's talk baseball here. Ronald Acuna, I want to talk about this because we missed it the past couple days. 21 years old, Drew. He just got an 8-year, $100 million contract. The Braves kind of sprung to get out in front of this because they could have waited. He was only a rookie last year. He hit 293, 26 home runs, 64 RBIs. The guy was a stud for sure for a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
But are they paying him too early? Because in baseball, if you're not familiar with the way the contracts work, they can pay him almost nothing for the first 3 years. And then you go to arbitration where you can pay him whatever a judge decides he's worth or whatever. Someone that's outside of baseball that decides what a guy's actual contractual value is. They had at least 3 more years before they had to worry about this, but they pounced on it right away, and they locked him up through his 30-year-old season.
I love this move, and I love it because it shows what the Atlanta Braves are willing to do for a great player in their city, in their team, saying, man, we could keep you on the, for pennies on the dime, and it costs us literally nothing. But instead they're like, we want to prove to you that we want you here. We don't want you to go anywhere. I love this move. I love what the Braves are doing, even if it doesn't make sense in the pocketbook because they could have had him so much cheaper. I still absolutely love this move.
And it's definitely a show of faith. When you have a 21-year-old, obviously you're showing a lot of faith sitting there saying, we could be paying you $100,000 a year, and we're paying you $17 million instead. It's a huge show of faith that this year was not just a fluke or it wasn't, an outlier or anything like that. He was the number 1 rated rookie going into the season. Yep. He lived up to it. Obviously, when you're hitting almost 300, teams want to keep you around, and it's good for the Braves to keep him around at a decent contract because if he keeps this up and he keeps trending upward, we're going to be talking about they got a good deal.
Yeah.
But I just think this is one of those things that could have waited 2 or 3 or 4 years until you get to that arbitration level. I mean, right now...
I get what you're saying, but this just shows what... you want it makes teams go or players go, man, I would like to go play for the Atlanta Braves.
Maybe.
Look at them. They care about keeping their quality players around.
Let's flip the script then.
And paying them the way they should be paid.
Let's flip the script. If you're Acuna and you're going to hit 300 every year, should you have taken this deal? Because 2 or 3 years from now, yeah, you might have to get $100K for the next 2 years, but when that comes up and you come to arbitration, you could be pulling $20 million like a guy like Mookie Betts. You could be pulling $20 million like Xander Bogaerts for the Red Sox because an arbitrator's like, yeah, you're a really good player. You deserve that kind of money.
He's totally betting on his body. He's not making that money right now. Now he is. Yeah, it's not top dollar where everyone else is, but 30 years old, I might be able to go out there and get another contract for another 10 years.
Well, 30 in baseball.
Where it's higher.
Absolutely right. 30 in baseball is not 30 in any other sport. I mean, you can play into baseball at 35, 36, 37 with some level of success. As long as your bat sticks around, you could play almost a 40 in baseball.
Exactly.
So, again, I don't hate this move. Like you said, he could be banking on, I'll get that next big contract at 30.
Because he wasn't making
and then
that'll
be it. No, absolutely not. Rookies never make anything in baseball. Like I said, the first 3 years, you're making about 60, 70, 80K a year.
Yep.
And they can renew you for nothing. You have no choice. You have no way to negotiate. So for Acuna to sign this deal, again, you're taking the money now, but I think you might be leaving a lot of money on the table. All you have to do is get to that arbitration level. And he played in the majors this year, so you got 2 more years of making $100K, $120K, $130K. After that, you're off to the races because you could be making $20 million a year. Instead, you've locked yourself in, and I'm not going to lie. I think this is a good move by the Braves to lock him up for this reason. I get it. You want to see more than 1 year out of a prospect because this could have been an outlier. But either way, you're still talking about getting a 21-year-old that you can develop, and you're getting him for an affordable contract that when he turns 24, when he turns 25, when he turns 26, you're going to be able to pay other guys to be on this team with him. And you're not like some of these teams like Philadelphia that are selling the farm out to have 1 or 2 or 3 players and just overpay the heck out of them. So it's a team-friendly deal here. It's a player-friendly deal in that he gets paid right away instead of having to wait 3, 4, 5 years to get the money. But Again, I just don't know if either side pulled the right move here, because I could see situations where both sides it doesn't work out for. Somebody's going to be the loser here. We're going to be talking about the Braves made a great deal, or we're going to be talking about how the Braves got taken for a ride because after that first year he fell off.
I guess I'm more of an optimist. I think it's a great signing on both of them. I like exactly what the Braves are doing, and I like what he's doing, where he's like, I need to make a little bit more money. Trust me and trust in my body to be more than just what I am at 21. At 30, I could be that much better.
Now, sir, going back to basketball here really quick, Brian says Morant will go number 2 if the Bulls have the second overall pick. I think it's likely. I think a lot of teams should absolutely consider him. Anyone that really needs a playmaker, anyone who can get a guy who needs a guy who can make assists, who can also score the basketball himself, I think should be looking at Morant. But Sharif's kind of going the other direction, saying that he's going to get crushed in the league. Do you think he needs to be bigger? Is 170 pounds at 6'3", is that an issue?
He's gonna put weight on. This kid,
he'll put a little bit of weight on. And again,
growing.
He's 19. I mean,
he's not done growing. He will put more weight on him. They will get him a professional trainer, someone who can lift weights. They're going to get him a dietitian, a nutritionist who's going to put him on this, in some kind of way to grow his body.
And being little is not always a bad thing in basketball, because you get touched, all of a sudden you're on the foul line. So I don't necessarily think him being 170 pounds is an issue. I really don't. Not in today's NBA where fouls get called all the time. To me, it's all about, can you make your shots? The guy's consistently shown when you're scoring 25 points on average in the NCAA. I get it was Murray State, but that's still a pretty decent program. That translates well. Now you're going to be talking about longer games. You're going to be talking about him being around better talent where he can dish the ball to them and let them score too. He can make them better. I like Morant. I think he's going to be fine in the league. Maybe not right away. He might be a guy that takes 2 to 3 to 4 years to grow into his spot, but I think he's going to be one of the better players 5 years from now that we're talking about in the NBA.
What's going on, Jeremy? Glad you could join us.
Absolutely. All right, Drew. Let's move on to our final story of the night. Quentin Spain, offensive guard, formerly from the Titans, moving on to Buffalo on a 1-year deal. They did not release the financials on this, so I don't have any of that. But a 1-year deal for a guy that arguably, if you listen to someone like Pro Football Focus, might have been the best offensive lineman playing on the Titans' offensive line. And I know what you're going to say. Why does that matter? Because they're paying guys like Taylor Lewan $80 million, and he's outperforming them. Do you like this signing for Buffalo? A team that's already signed 5 offensive linemen
that was
in the offseason?
To be, I think the only reason beyond him being an ex-Titan, this is the story is how many offensive linemen did they sign? Obviously, the Bills needed
this is
an
number
offensive
6,
line.
And we haven't made it to the draft yet.
And there's still a draft ahead of them. I love it. I mean, it's kind of weird to sit there and say I love it, but I do love it because it's huge. It's going, Josh Allen, we fully believe in you. We trust in you. You are the future of our organization. Let us get the best offensive line possible around you. And it starts with the next chief and center, Mitch Morse.
Absolutely, and he's probably going to be playing right next to him. But if something does happen to Morse, the advantage you have for signing a guy like Quentin Spain here is he's able to rotate over to center. He played a lot of center early on in his career, then moved to guard. So you're getting a versatile guy that can play on the inside. Now, for a guy that's 330 pounds like Quentin Spain, he's not the best run blocker in the world, but he's a pretty solid pass blocker. He grades out really well with that. To me, it's interesting to see them bring in a guy that can pass block like this. It tells me they want to see fewer hits on Josh Allen, who last year, it was pretty much him running for his life, wasn't it? You'd think with them being a kind of grinded-out football team, one that likes running the ball, we'd be seeing more on the offensive line, more run blockers, more guys that can make holes for a running back like Shady and McCoy run through, right?
Right.
And yet, they're going the opposite direction here, saying, we've got our young quarterback, it's time to start protecting him.
And not only that, they are also putting receiving weapons around him as well. I then again will say exactly what I said when all the free agent seasons started happening. I love the moves that the Bills are doing to create an offense around Josh Allen that fits him.
Before this deal, Drew, $39.5 million in guaranteed money to these new offensive linemen. Now we're talking about more money to a guard. Are they over-investing in the offensive line? Is there such a thing?
No. Not when your quarterback's on a rookie contract. This is exactly the time to do it. Get the best offensive line that you possibly can around this guy, and then see what happens from there.
Absolutely. Now, another thing they're buying here with Spain, 48 starts in 4 years in the NFL. He's been available pretty much 24/7. He's one of those guys that shows up to work every day, and he may not be the best offensive lineman in the game, but he's one of those guys who can contribute. He can keep your quarterback clean, and if you put good guys around him, you're never going to be like, oh, he's the weak spot on our offensive line. I would have liked to see the Titans re-sign him and try to move him to the right side even. Because, again, I think he was one of the best players on our line last year. I think he can be going forward as well. So I look at this signing for Buffalo, and I'm sitting there saying they got a pretty good player on a prove-it deal.
Yep. Matty says, Go Bills are beefing up that O-line, man. They absolutely are. And Steve says, let's go Buffalo Bills. Will says, go Bucks. Let's fight for that first pick in 2020. I think the Dolphins are going to have something to say about that, buddy.
Unless something drastic happens in the draft. I think you're right. I think the Dolphins are on line for that. But we had them picked to have this one, Drew. Is there another season lined up for Miami where we're talking about them winning 6, 7, 8 games, and we're just sitting there scratching our heads saying, how?
Well, okay. I mean, if we're going to talk about that, I think there is a discussion about this. If they are truly going, we're going to do the worst we possibly can without proving it or showing it, and go for the number 1 pick next year, they picked the wrong guy in Ryan Fitzpatrick, because guess what? That guy does have a little bit of magic, and he can go off and throw 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not saying that's going to happen.
I disagree.
But he can do it. He can do it. And if he does it, then you're looking at 2, 3, 4 wins. And if a team bails completely, maybe like another Raiders kind of scenario, guess what? You're not getting the first pick.
I just think when you sign a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, if you put weapons around him, then you'll see those 400-yard games, especially when you look at where he's had his most success in the Jets, and that's true. But when you look at where he's had his most success, the Jets, they had Brandon Marshall still with something left to give, and Eric Decker as well before he got too old to play football. Then he moves on to Tampa Bay. He's got Mike Evans. He's got Deshaun Jackson. He's got 2 good tight ends in Brayton Howard. He's got Humphreys in the slot as well. He has a ton of weapons in Tampa Bay to make things happen.
You don't believe in Parker?
No, I don't. I mean, how many times do I have to go over this?
You don't
they got
believe in
nobody
Drake?
in Miami. They let Danny Amendola go. They have nobody.
Well, he was never anybody to begin with.
I know, but that just goes to show you they have absolutely nothing going on the offensive side of the ball, they have no receivers. They have no they have Gesicki.
They got the best yak receiver in the NFL, Albert Wilson.
They have Gesicki, is what they have. And guess what? He had a pretty
Albert
underwhelming
Wilson,
year, too.
The best yak receiver in the NFL.
Miami's getting the first overall pick in 2020. I know we picked it for 2019, but they're getting it in 2022.
The guy's he's not dead, and the magic is not dead, and I will never stop selling the man. I'm sorry.
I think Will's just upset he's going out of Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And if my quarterback's Jameis Winston, I would definitely want
too.
Ryan Fitzpatrick over Blaine Gabbert being the backup. So I understand that. Sharif also says Buffalo and Miami will create havoc in the AFC East. Buffalo, sure, I'll buy that. I think they've done a pretty good job this offseason when you look at their moves, beefing up the offensive line, going out and getting some receivers, even if they're not marquee guys, but guys who can contribute. You look at Miami, what has Miami done? They brought in a coach. The coach isn't making any tackles. That's all I can say. I mean, I don't know. I really think Miami is going to be the absolute laughingstock of the NFL this year, and I hate it for you if you're a Dolphins fan. It's your time to rebuild. It's your time to be at the bottom of the league. My Titans were just there 3 years ago.
No, they still.
So we know thanks, Drew. We know exactly what that's like. It's just one of those things that you're just hoping they have a quick turnaround and Miami can get back on track when a year or 2 passes here.
Steve says, "What were my Blue Jays thinking trading Kevin Pillier this early?"
Giving up, that's what they're thinking. They're looking at the Red Sox and they're saying that's a super team. They're looking at the Yankees like, man, these guys are outspending us. They have a bunch of bats and everything. If they get their pitching figured out, they're going to whoop us too. They're sitting there saying we're like the Orioles right now, and we're just not really a competitor.
The Orioles just took 2 out of 3 games against the Yankees.
I know, but okay, we're talking about 162 games again here.
I know, but I'm just getting at. I'd hate to sit there and say Blue Jays are thinking it's done. Let's get the most we can. But
if there's a sport that's saying it's done, let's get the most we can. It's baseball, and that's exactly what this was.
I hate to say it, Steve, but I think that's exactly what was going on. I really, honestly do.
Will says he bets I have an Air McNair jersey. I do not. And you know what? I actually managed to hold off buying a Vince Young jersey, too. You don't buy Titans jerseys. Let me tell you why. Because you don't know if the guy's going to be on the team next year. So I don't buy too many Titans jerseys, believe it or not.
Not in today's NFL, you can't. You can buy some old ones, like, if I was going to go out and
You still see a lot of Air McNair jerseys out there. But
all I say is every time I think about buying a jersey, I go, okay, are my Chiefs going to keep this guy around forever? Because as soon as he gets traded off to somewhere else or goes to free agency, I don't want to wear that guy's jersey no more.
I agree with you.
I kind of have a weird thing about that.
Just going back to it, Sharif says the Orioles are hot right now. Look, I agree. And it's still, again, a very, very young baseball season. But I think the Blue Jays looked around and they said, we're probably not beating this Red Sox team out. We're probably not beating the Yankees. What's the point? Let's just go start the rebuild now. And baseball is all about rebuilding. It's all about stacking up as many prospects as you can, and you have a couple of them hit, and then all of a sudden you're in the market to start signing guys again. So
exactly.
Maybe a couple years from now, we're talking about the Blue Jays rebounding. But for right now, I think it's pretty much a two-horse race in that AL East
I hate
bracket.
to say it, but I don't hate to say it. But
Yeah, look at the hats you're wearing.
as a Blue Jays fan, I hate to say it.
I agree with you. Now, also, Sharif said the Miami will be 2-14 with two wins, and they'll both come against the Patriots. And let me tell you, they will not. You look at how Belichick's former proteges stack up against him. It's not very good. I think Brian Flores is just the next guy to fall victim to Bill Belichick whooping him.
I was gonna bet on any team in the NFC East to beat New England, it would be Miami.
Even AFC East? Yeah. I would pick Buffalo, I think. I think the Jets are still not quite there yet.
Historically.
I agree. But historically, it doesn't matter. We're talking about football in 2019.
It absolutely
does
matters.
not. And let me tell you why.
What team beat
how many
the
of those
Patriots?
Well, let me ask you this. How many of those players were on that team? Were on the teams that beat the Patriots?
How many?
You see so much turnover.
What was the team that beat the Patriots last year?
It was Miami.
Okay.
But what did it take to beat the Patriots
doesn't
last
matter.
year?
That magic
a
can
Hail
happen
Mary.
again.
Exactly. So now that Gronk is gone, I'm sure they're going to put another different safety valve back there, and maybe he makes that tackle. Maybe we're talking about Miami losing that game too. Going back to this, I think if there's a team that's going to beat the Patriots, not to get off subject here, I think it's going to be the Buffalo Bills because they're reinvesting in the offensive line, which, if you look at the Patriots' front seven, has been a huge weakness. They're reinvesting in weapons to try to catch the ball. They're going to try to compete with these guys. They still have a good defense. If someone's stealing the game, whether it's in Foxborough or at home against the Patriots, it's Buffalo. The Jets aren't there yet. They don't have the weapons. The Jets don't have the defense either. Miami's done nothing. Miami's done nothing but subtract.
I got Robbie Anderson and Nunwa.
Yeah, game over.
And Crowder.
Exactly. And the question is Sam Darnold going to be able to make it happen? And I'm a Darnold guy, and I'm saying this. Is Sam Darnold going to be able to make it happen against Tom Brady in the middle of December when he's got to go play him at the end of the season in Foxborough? And let me tell you right now, probably not. He's not ready yet.
We got jokes on me, huh? Sheree says, Drew, I know you got a Steve DeBerg jersey. I do not. And Will's saying it's a Montana jersey. I also do not have one of those. And he says, don't put it under a blacklight, though. Well, guess what, guys? I have a wife. I don't have to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure Will's just talking about his Gruden jersey from experience there.
Yeah.
And not that Gruden had a jersey being a coach and everything.
His
but
Johnson jersey or
Satb
jersey or...
exactly. Work done or something. I don't know.
Something
you tell
like
me.
that. Who... Allstott.
He's got a lot of guys.
Who was the fullback?
He's got a lot of guys.
Who was the fullback? I'm blanking on the name. That guy, that huge buck guy. Who was that guy? God, driving me nuts. I know I almost had it, but I'm gonna stop trying to pronounce it.
Anyway, guys, Drew.
He's got a Lynch jersey. That one definitely got some stains on it. No doubt about it.
I just hope they're his. Moving on. Drew, I know we don't have a lot of NFL to talk about here today. Obviously, signing an offensive guard, not the biggest news in the world, but you know I had to talk about it. You know I had to bring the Titans into it somehow. I still like this move for Buffalo, and again, they're my pick to be second in the AFC East. We'll talk about that later in the offseason, but for right now, before we talk about the draft, before we talk about anything else, if there's a team that is going to edge out the Patriots somehow because Tom Brady got old or their weapons all got old, it's got to be Buffalo. Like, there's no argument here. I really don't think so. I don't think these other two teams, I get what you're saying, Miami's historically done it, but man, they're depleted. Everybody is gone off of this team.
But that's what we say every year. And they
well,
pull off
that's
a
true,
win in Miami.
But it would be Tannehill pulling something. Never mind, I'm not going to say that. Pulling something off, not pulling something out. Tannehill pulling something off that would make this kind of stuff happen or make this kind of stuff possible. Now you're talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick with nobody to throw to. Absolutely nobody to throw to. I don't know, man. I'm fading Miami. I think our 2-14 pick from last year might come true this year. I think we might have just been a year ahead.
Just a year. We saw it coming. The writing was on the wall.
In our crystal ball, absolutely.
David said that league crapped out earlier than you thought. Yeah.
Welcome in, David, and let me tell you, man, nobody's more disappointed than me because I wanted to see this thing succeed. I wanted to see football going into April and May of every year, and to see them fail because they mismanaged their money, absolutely terrible to see. I couldn't be more distraught about it. But, again, at least we only have to wait until next year to see the XFL, see if they can make things happen. And I have much more faith in Vince McMahon than I do in anyone else that's been running the AAF. I just hope they change up the people in the booth.
Yep.
Well, all right, guys. Before we get out of here, Drew's got some special thanks here. So I'm going to let you go ahead.
Yeah, guys. Thank you so much again for joining us this evening. And we appreciate all the comments, all the likes, all the shares. Facebook is one evil machine. We try to beat it as best we possibly can, and we wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't with you guys. But just special thanks out there to Sharif, Seth, Will, Steve, George, Joey, Nathan, Chris, Maddie, Brian, Jeremy, David. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much.
And just final thoughts here. Sharif says Tannehill has a hot wife, though. Absolutely. The guy's winning in life. He's got millions of dollars in the bank, most likely. The question is going to be, does that hot wife stick around after he stops making those millions? Good luck to him, because if you look at the divorce rate in the NFL, it's like 60% after the guys retire. Pretty terrible. I hope he hangs on to it. Anyway, for Sports Around the Bar, I'll leave you with that. I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew, and we will see you guys next time.
See ya.